don't believe it's gone live already. Hello there, and welcome. Hope you're doing okay. So, I thought I'd give you a little transition update on stuff that's been going on recently. So, I am now 7 weeks into HRT, something I've been waiting a long time for. I think the last time I mentioned my transition on my channel, I've mentioned in a few other places, was a few months ago, and how a new gender identity clinic opened in Manchester, which meant that I had appointments that happened really quick. So in 18 weeks, I went from being first contacted to getting hormones, which is fantastic. This is the way it should be. And just to give you an idea how bad it is, a little over a week ago, a young trans woman committed suicide because she lived in Northern Ireland. She'd been on the waiting list for a couple of years, and then she moved to England, and she had to go right back to the start and would have to wait about 4 years. And that means that can you imagine how demoralising that is, to be told, sorry, you're just going to have to go back to the queue, back to the start of the queue, a queue that takes years. And just to give you an idea how long the waiting list is. So I used to be with the Leeds Gender Identity Clinic, and in that clinic, for them, I waited for a long time. Now, even if we get not, sorry, I'm rambling. Let's get down to it instead of going off on a tangent. So, I was put on the list for Leeds in the December of 2018. In the February, I had a screening call, which is where they kind of weed out any, any time wasters, and that is rather a horrible way to describe it, because at the end of the day, there are people that are still thinking and questioning, and the resources for the gender identity clinics is incredibly low. So as a result, they end up having to they have to make tough decisions about who they can see. And it would be great if they could see everybody, just to help them get themselves together, kind of thing. Or sorry, help them understand what their needs are. Because you're going to have some people that are, not really sure. They're still trying to think about it. They're still trying to figure out who they are, effectively. And one of the things that a lot of trans women and trans men as well is, am I trans enough? Is one of the thoughts that sort of pops up for people. Well, so when you've got when they have people that aren't really completely sure, they haven't got the resources to meet them all. So what they do is, it's like, oh, okay, you're not really sure. Well, what we'll do is we'll send you some information, and and have a think about it. And if you need help, go to your doctors, ask him to refer you again, that kind of thing. So, like I say, it's not so much time waste as it's things that they haven't got the time and resources to help with. And this is one of the problems that we get in the UK. that there are two elements where the NHS is brilliant at almost everything and rubbish at really a small amount of things. And one of the things it's kind of rubbish at is mental health and trans care. But trans care kind of comes on under the mental health kind of stuff because back in the old days, being transgender was considered a mental disorder, and so they have a system that they follow, and it's long and laborious, and it's all very medicalized. Now, one of the things that's changed in recent years has been that being transgendered isn't considered a mental disorder anymore. But the system really hasn't changed. So, someone like me will sit on a waiting list for ages and ages and ages, and then maybe eventually you'll get through and you'll get to see someone. And then you sit around for ages and ages and ages, and then you get your second assessment, and then that's when they say, yes, you're transgendered, as if we don't know these things. But in the meantime, we've got to live our lives in the gender as we live. I spent 2.5 years, 928 days, between being assessed and getting hormones. And I had to live my life as a woman with no hormones of any kind. Effectively, underneath the makeup and the clothes, I was still a guy. Now, that doesn't mean what I'm talking about up here. Up here is a different thing, mind and body. I'm talking about on the physical side of things. My physical transition there was no movement for 2.5 years. But I'm lucky because Manchester opened a new gender identity clinic, and because of that, it meant that the waiting list was just, dropped really quick. Their goal is to see you in 6 weeks and get the second assessment 6 weeks after that. I had a 6-week delay because when I had the first assessment, the doctor was basically, we need to get some blood tests from you. So, I've got a thyroid issue at the moment, and I'm getting blood tests every couple of months. So I said to the doctor, well, look, I'm already getting blood tests done. I've got a blood test scheduled in 2 weeks' time. So how about you send them an email telling them what you need, and while they're taking blood for you, for me, when they're taking blood for their needs, they can take them for you as well. So that was agreed with, and they did. Unfortunately, when I went for the blood test, they only took 1 vial and they're supposed to take 2 for the gender identity clinic, but they also didn't do a BMI or a blood pressure check, which they needed to. So I missed the email, and so I waited, and it's like, I wondered what's going on. So I sent an email, and it's like, oh, I sent you an email about the blood test thing. And I ended up having to look back at it and realise, oh my gosh, yes, they didn't supply what I needed. So I got in contact with my doctor and arranged another blood test, and so that was done, and they got their information. I lost 6 weeks on that. Now look, a month and a half out of 2.5 years is nothing. So I wasn't really too upset about that. It was more annoying than anything. It's like, of course they didn't do their job properly, and I didn't notice the mistake until later. So if I'd have noticed it straight away, then it would have been dealt with much quicker. But 18 weeks from being assessed for my first assessment and then getting my second assessment was really quite amazing. Now, one of the things you may have noticed, not wearing the wig anymore. That's something that I've gone and ditched now. This time of year, incredibly hot, and and just uncomfortable. You kind of get sweaty. I mean, today I'm just looking at the weather. It's been a bit rainy today, and there's 88% humidity, 15 degrees Celsius. For my American friends, that's 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So, yeah, been a little bit warm. Now, I'm just going to open up. Let's go and have a look at this. So, just going to move things around a bit. Okay, and no, not that one. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so just going to go to the Leeds Gender Clinic. So this is the one I used to be assigned to. And if we look, let's close that, and it says waiting times explained, and this will give you an idea of how long. So, this was the screening call I mentioned, and then you got a first assessment. This is people who were placed on the list in January. Now, back in February when I was first contacted, that was saying November. So between November and now, it's only gone 2 months, because this is how many people are on that list for Leeds. And then the second assessment, a lot shorter. But I figured out, based upon how these have changed, that if I was still with Leeds, it would be the end of 2023 into 24 in order to be assessed. So you can imagine it's quite tough. How am I doing this? There we go. So you can imagine how it's really frustrating to be waiting for so long. And like I say, I'm lucky. I'm really, really lucky. If it wasn't for this new Gender Identity Clinic program, because it's a pilot program. There's 3 of them. There's one in London, one in the Merseyside, Cheshire area, and another one in Manchester. London, Merseyside, and Manchester. Now, if I lived just 20 miles away from here, I wouldn't come under the that catchment area. I'd be still waiting for another couple of years, basically, to get to the point I'm at now. And there's a weird thing, because when I listen to Americans, they talk about how their system is. It was, it's so much easier for Americans to get hormones. It doesn't take very long. It's like, days, weeks, months kind of thing, or month. Whereas in the UK it takes a lot longer. Because I think one of the elements is that in America you're a customer rather than a patient. You get what you pay for, and that's how the system works there. Whereas in the UK, you're an NHS patient. Now, on the counter side of that, when it comes to all the other stuff, with the NHS, it's free. The only thing it's going to cost me is if I want to get more laser hair removal. If I want to get my arms or legs done, or chest or stomach or something like that, if I want to get those things done, those are going to cost me. They will do my face, and actually I'm just waiting for a call next week on arranging, because I've got some funding for some facial hair removal, because one of the areas without makeup, I've got blue area there, and under my lip as well, and shaving is a pain in the backside. It's annoying. So excuse me, let me just take a drink. One of the things I did with voice coaching is got to keep lubricated. So what happened for me? Well, I got to find something else which I think might be interesting, and it's down here somewhere.
Initial record, and then
me.
we can do it again after therapy.
No, that's not the one. Oh, that's a different one anyway. It's that one, I think. Okay, so I've got something else to share with you, which I think you might find interesting. So, especially if you have any interest in, just going to scroll across a bit. Sorry, this is taking a little while because I've got I'm moving stuff so it's not visible, because I'm not an idiot. I'm not like G-Man. I'm not going to dox myself by giving out my full name and address on the internet. So I'm just going to share this with you. So, oh, hang on, let's try that again. Okay, so this was when I was getting my second assessment. That's my GP, my gender GP on the right hand side. Dr. Luke Wookie. Yes, I was assessed by a Wookie. But what's interesting is, so these red bits are showing my testosterone levels. Now, the way that these system works, when you just get a blood test, they look at certain categories that you're in, and anything that's not right will show up as red, because it draws awareness to the things that might be a concern. So what happened was, back when I first started my transition, back in early 2019, one of the problems that I had, just going to swap here for a second. So one of the problems that I had was that I was, there it is. So one of the problems that I had was that when I would go to the doctors, they had an automated check-in system. So basically, you've got a little computer screen, because they don't want like people with the flu going and infecting, the people behind the reception counter. So they've got this automated system. So what happens is you go in and you press the screen, and it says put in your gender, and then you put in your date of birth, and then zoomp, it'll find you. And that, is this you? Yes. Right, take a seat, and that you're now logged in for your appointment. And then when my doctor is ready, it'll just ping up on a screen, and I'll just go straight through. So takes up the resource, takes away some of the resources needed by the reception people, and stops anyone getting germy. So well, one of the problems for me was having to press the mail button, because although I'd changed my name legally in the February, I was still a male on the system. So, but for some reason the doctor and surgery, whatever, can't just like change it. So what happened was it was arranged for me to get a new NHS number, and I would be entered as female on the system. So when you're looking, when we look at this, when we look at these numbers here, these testosterone numbers are way too high for someone who is an F on the system. So when we were going through this, my doctor basically told me that my testosterone level is really low. The normal testosterone for someone like me before taking HRT would be about 25 upwards. I can't remember what it was. It was like 29 to 59 or something like that. Sorry, 25 to 59 or something along those lines. I suppose I could just play this and he'll tell me, but but as you can see here, my testosterone level is 8.8, which is really low. So, well, this is good news for me, because now that so sorry, just moving things around. I should be more organised. Thinking about becoming more organised with some. Thinking about getting a what do you call it? A stream desk thing. A little thing where you just press a couple of buttons and it does all the stuff for you. Anyway, so back that day, after going through the testosterone and listening to me and stuff like that, he basically said, right, based upon what you said and all the other stuff, that he was giving me a diagnosis of gender incongruence. They don't call it gender dysphoria anymore, and I forgot what they used to call it, which didn't sound very nice at all. So I got a diagnosis of gender incongruence, which is basically my gender, my mind, how I see myself isn't congruent to what my physical body is. So this is now effectively turned it a bit like a video game. You get to a certain point and you get through a bit, and then suddenly it unlocks all the map or unlocks all the levels that you couldn't access before. And that's what this has done for me. So the first thing is that I'm now taking HRT, and this is called Sandrina. It's only 0.5 grams at the moment, micrograms, sorry. But as things go on, they will increase the dosage, because you don't go straight up. You don't start off high. You basically build up your levels, and that's why I'll be taking frequent blood tests. And what I've arranged to do with my doctors is to send, get a test done for the gender identity clinic at the same time. So on Wednesday, because it's on my diary of things to do, Wednesday's going to be a busy day. I've got 4 things to do that day, and one of the things I've got to do is to phone my doctors to arrange a blood test, and then which will probably be in a few days afterwards, and I'll just go along, get some blood taken, and so that's how we're going. Yes, thank you very much. I'm doing very well, thank you, Simon, and thank you everybody else. Sorry. So just to give you an idea what these are like. 28 little capsules of and it's a bit like the tomato ketchup you get at McDonald's or something. And actually, I haven't done this today, so I'm going to put my HRT on right now. I'm not going to show you exactly how I do it, but basically I'm just going to lift my skirt up here, and what you do is it's a clear gel, and I stick it on my thigh and just squeeze it all out. I've got a real habit of really wringing it out. So once that's all out, what I do then is I rub it, instead of rubbing it with my hands, I rub it with my arm here, because that way I number one, I don't have to wash my hands, and number two, of course, all of it's being used, all of it's being absorbed through my skin. So yep, that's that, and I'm done. It's really easy to do. And that gives me I take it every day. Tend to do it in the afternoon, evening time. It's starting to work really nicely. It really is. Over the last few days, maybe the last 3 or 4 days, I've noticed that, I'd already noticed that my skin was getting softer on my arms here, which obviously this is where it's being directly applied. But I've noticed that my hands feel softer, my legs and my shoulders, and everywhere. It's just like my skin just feels, it's like so much more, pliable. It's almost like memory foam. You know what I mean by memory foam? It just has that kind of sponginess to it. And it's like my skin has just got this new level of sponginess and smoothness. I'm even seeing it on my face. Right now I am wearing a full load of makeup. But yesterday I was chatting to some Australian friends over the internet, and I was live streaming my face with no makeup. The only makeup I had was lipstick. And I'm looking at myself, often I had my camera off because I kind of, I get dysphoria looking at it, because one of the problems with dysphoria is it's almost like you're looking, how you get some people who look to be offended, that everything they do, they want to be offended, and so they're constantly finding something, even whether it's there or not. Similar kind of thing. I look at myself on the screen, and I'm sort of looking out for the guy part, if you know what I mean, because that's like, no, you're not properly there yet, kind of thing. More work to be done. And well, I found myself looking at myself and thinking, actually, I can see the signs now, because like I say, before I was taking HRT, I didn't have the I didn't have people. Sorry, excuse me. I didn't. The mirror was still showing me as a guy when I got up in the morning and went to use the toilet or something. Turned around to wash my hands, and there's the mirror, reminded me. Actually, yeah, that's a guy's head on a girl's nightgown, kind of thing. And so that was one of my big dysphoria things. So I hardly ever look at myself in the mirror. And yet yesterday, and I'm now sort of catching sight of myself and saying, yes, that part, that in my head, the thing that I know I am on the inside, I'm starting to see on the outside. And that's the incongruence, the gender incongruence, that, what I see in the mirror isn't who I am on up here, isn't, but now I'm just starting, like I say, 7 weeks in, I'm now starting to see the rewards. It's starting to, to come together. So that's the HRT stuff. Well, the other thing, so I have a depression problem, and one of the medications I take is something called amitriptyline, and it's good. It's not an SSRI. I don't do well with SSRIs, but this one works perfectly fine, and it's really helping. Well, the amitriptyline also has a little bit of an anti-androgen, which is a testosterone blocker, or it's got a bit of estrogen. I'm not entirely sure, but one of the things it does say in the literature for it is that it can cause breast growth, which is fine for me, and I actually do have a bit, a little bit of boob. It's not a huge amount, but it's enough. I mean, I don't know, if I just sort of sit up a little bit. Excuse me, if I sit up a little bit, there's a bit of boob there. I don't know, a little bit. So I'm developing. It's going to take time. It's going to take about a year. So, like I say, it's things have come together with that. Well, and for me it was wonderful because, it was, it was almost as if my body was saying, I know you're going to be waiting a long time for hormones. I'll get started without you. So, so like I say, it's all starting to come together now. So I've had that's lowered my testosterone. And so if you remember on the screen where it was showing the red line, and it was showing my testosterone was 8.8, when it would normally be about 25 for someone pre-transition. So, well, one of the other problems that I've got is the old testosterone thing was causing hair loss. And, well, what happens is that, from what I understand anyway, because I'm not a scientist, I don't understand a lot of this stuff. This is just the general impression that I've got from reading a couple of bits and bobs and listening to other people. So what happens is, on the top of your head, for guys, the testosterone is what causes male pattern baldness. And so well, now that I'm reducing the amount of testosterone in me, hopefully the hair follicles, because the hair follicles aren't dead, they're just dormant. They're not growing very fast because the testosterone is either slowing or stopped them from working. But the hair follicles on the head last for about 10 years, and then they die if they don't have, if the testosterone maintains at a higher level. Well, fortunately for me, obviously, the testosterone's gone down. So, but I'm also going to be taking this thing, and this is called finasteride. This is used for a number of things, including, men who have prostate problems. It's one of the standard treatments for someone with prostate cancer before they either remove it or hopefully cure it. Or my dad, my stepdad had prostate cancer, and they had this wonderful thing they did. They basically injected the prostate with like little radioactive grains of sand, shall we say, grains of rice, almost like little pellets, and radioactive, and that's what killed the cancer. I don't know, I don't get all that, but anyway. So but the finasteride is not only is it used for that, but it's also used for trans women to help with hair loss problems. So with any luck, with this, that should reignite, restart the hair follicles on the top. It takes a number of months for it to really start to take effect. So it's probably going to take at least a year before I see any real results, because of course these things are incremental, because like I say, I've still got hair up there, it's just not growing as quick as it is out here. So yeah, that's basically how things are going. And I'm like I say, I'm really fortunate that I'm in Manchester right now, because it's kind of tough being out there, being trans. I mean, you got so many of these TERFs and awful, horrible people around, and that can be quite draining. But if you look on my Twitter, which if you don't know me on Twitter, which is at now_being_Laura, my pinned tweet is effectively showing Twitter's what you make of it, because in 2019, when COVID wasn't around, that nice warm summer, I put on a dress that I bought like a couple of years before, and it's like, is this a bit too short for me? Because it was kind of like mid-thigh level, and it's like, is that a bit too short for me? And I had lots of really nice comments saying, basically, wear whatever you want, kind of, screw everybody else, just wear what you want. And so I think it's the kind of thing that I think I might wear with leggings, and maybe if I decide to get surgery, I generally stay away from talking about genitals because it's not the kind of thing you talk about in general. But that I have noticed a change down there as well. If the spammers knew, I would be getting a lot more of those enlarge your, emails, because it has shrunk, and also, like the rest of the skin that's got softer, it's got quite softer as well. I did see something funny last week. There's Katie Montgomery. She's got a Turf Wars thing, and I think it was on there. It might have been on something else actually, but it was effectively someone trying to insult a trans woman by saying they've got a limp dick, and it's like, you got to be kidding me, as if that's an insult. That's not an insult. So it's kind of comical to see. I mean, it is tough being out there. It really is. I mean, there's something that I've coined the Brexit effect. The Trump effect works the same way, but effectively, the people who are racists, when we had the referendum on Europe, or when Trump got in, they then felt they had the ability to now say, because 10 years ago, if you had a friend who said something racist, you'd be like, really? And they'd be silenced into shame. But then we have a referendum, and suddenly what happens is, the racists now think, oh, well, because we've had this referendum, I can tell those black people to F off back home. If you remember the Black Lives Matter stuff going on, you've got Black Lives Matter going on, and you got the other people usually gammony, red-faced people going, no, all lives matter. And then a couple of months later, they're talking about how the Royal Navy should blow, migrant rubber boats trying to get across the English Channel to get to England. They should blow them out of the water. It's like, I thought all lives mattered. Apparently not. So, well, because the racists got away with it, the homophobes and the transphobes think they can get away with it as well. And, an hour and a half ago, I went out. I needed to get some undercoat for spraying some model train stuff, and It was less than 2.5 miles, there and back. And I had 4 people leaning out their window, kind of thing, laughing at me. And I had 3 people gawping at me. And it's like, going out as trans. Massive problem, apparently. I don't understand it, But the thing about it is, I can't control what someone else does or says, but I can control how I deal with it. And the thing about it is, I don't care what they think. I'm living my life for me. I spent 19 years living my life for other people, knowing that I was trans but not living it because I was scared of what will other people think. I'm not doing that anymore. I can't do that anymore. I've got to be me. And that was, we've had this Requiem for the GDC thing with on Ethan's channel, and it's, every time Jade comes up, and as well as Jade adopting me as a cyber mum, which was wonderful of her, and obviously when she died, it was heartbreaking for me. And if you haven't already seen it, I've got a video on this channel about when I changed my name, and my middle name I picked Jade, because one of the things that we do in society is to often a middle name is a parent or grandparent, and I thought, what better way to honour Jade's impact in my life, and also that sort of element of courage in being out and being yourself. She was a Catholic lesbian. I mean, that, for some people that's just it's a contradiction in terms. But she recognised me as I am. And so, and not only that, I didn't go and steal the name. I actually went to a few close friends and I said, look, do you think this is appropriate? Because, I didn't want to end up with a thing where, I didn't want to end up like Steve. Well, it was okay, it's okay you starting off a group, but, pinching a phrase from some other place, that's not appropriate. Well, or from someone beloved in the community, that's not appropriate. Well, I didn't want to end up with that kind of thing. So, I asked them, and they thought it was wonderful. And one person she was more spiritual about it. She's like, oh, she's looking down and smiling. Well, that was good enough for me. And so that's why I changed my name. So my name is Laura Jade. That Jade is my middle name. So, and like I say, I don't just get to remember him in my heart. I get to remember every time I, look at my bank card or, etc. So, when I get a letter through the post, I get a little reminder about, Jade in there. So it's just that little, it's a wonderful little thing for me. But the main thing that excuse me, I got a bloody fly gone in my bloody. I'm sorry about this, but I can't be drinking a fly. There it is. So, but the main thing that I got from Jade's death is life is short and then you die. Why am I putting everybody else's happiness on comfort before my own? Here I am living in misery, not being myself, knowing who I was, but not being able to do it because I was scared about what other people would think. Well, like I say, people on the street today leaning out of cars and jeering at me, I don't give a fuck what they think. Excuse my language, but I don't. You know, I'm not living for them, I'm living for me. They're living for themselves, you know. So, you know, it's like none of their business. So I'm living for myself now, and now things are working out just right. You know, the all that waiting has now come to the point where I'm now developing, and you know, and I mean, you may already know I've got agoraphobia. You know, stuff like that happened earlier, and it really upset me at the time. And the reason why it upset me is because when stuff like that happens, the adrenaline kicks off. And when the adrenaline goes, that's when the testosterone comes. Now, although my testosterone level is lower and getting lower, it's still there. And so I get like an internal rage of, how dare you, kind of thing. How dare you treat me awful like this? And so, you know, it takes me into a blokey mindset, you know, an aggressive, and that's not who I want to be. It's not who I am. It's not how I want to display myself, you know. So, got a wrinkle. So I just don't want to, you know, that's not who I want to be. And like I say, I'm doing so well. I mean, the only sad thing that's going on really in my life is family. You know, that I'm on my own for my transition, and that's pretty sad. You know, my mum disowned me, and if you don't already know this, my mum disowned me back in March of 2019, because I wanted to go down and give her a Mother's Day present the day after, as a guy. Go down as a guy and just take it down and leave it on the doormat or whatever, you know. And it was kind of a tough one. But you know, I came home and I turned one of my worst days. Do you know what? I'll just tell you the story. I might as well just tell you the story. So basically what happened was I came out in December 2018 to my parents, and I told them I'm going to be transitioning. I'd already been to see the doctors a week before and asked him to refer me to Gender Identity Clinic. And I thought, you know, and I did it. I was thinking about doing it in the spring or summer of 2019, but I decided to bring it forward because, first of all, I'm not very good at keeping secrets, you know, keeping things to myself like that. I prefer to be out and open. But also, with it being Christmas in, you know, a week and a half's time, I wanted them to have a last Christmas with their son, as it were. And so I came and I explained what had been going on, explained, you know, what I basically mentioned when I came out to everybody in the January of 2019 on this channel. Well, my mum didn't react. I mean, she seemed to react. My dad was fine. It was actually my dad I was more worried about, because I told my mum that, you know, I knew who I was in 1999. I told her that I was going to be going to America and going to a transgender cross-dressing sort of gathering. And you know, and her response was, "Okay, fine, just don't bring it here." But over the years, she might give me something that was rather girly or whatever. You know, do you want this bedding? Do you want these baskets? You know, so and she allowed me to go down and like wash my clothes there before I got my own washing machine at home. So she knew about it, and it was. So I was hoping that she would like, okay, well, I was expecting this might happen one day. Now it's happening, but no, she react. I think she took some of the stuff that I said too personally. Because one of the things I said, and she kind of tried to blame herself. In before she disowned me. Because one of the things I said to her, I said that, when I was a teenager, when I was 16 or whatever it was, I borrowed some of my mum's clothes, and it was like put them back, and there was a family meeting, and so I remember quite vividly, I was stood up, looking at my feet in shame, because this was something that, it was wrong, remember, this is in the 80s, the late 80s, and I didn't understand I didn't understand it. I didn't know what transgender was. I didn't have any understanding of it, because my idea of transgender people was a prostitute in a Dirty Harry movie, or Rocky Horror Picture Show, or a drag queen. Well, that wasn't me at all. So I didn't know until 1999 when I got on the internet at home and then discovered, oh, that's what transgender people are. That's what I am. So, it is, it's, it was kind of tough. So what I had to, when I was 16 and we had this family meeting, my dad was sat at the dining table, my mum was sat on the arm of the sofa, and she just said, why'd you do it? And I said, I don't know, and I didn't know. It was like an instinct. I needed to express myself as a girl in the same way as I needed to breathe, and so she's like, you must know. And I said nothing, and she said, what, do you want to be a girl or something? And I paused, and I said, no. But in my head I was thinking, yes, I think. But, and that's because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have the language, I didn't have the knowledge. I couldn't explain to her because I couldn't understand it myself. And my parents loved me. Loved me. If I'd have said yes, I'm sure they would have got help for me. I don't know what that help would have looked like back then. Maybe I would have been transitioning when I was younger. Who knows? But it wasn't until I left home and got my own place, and then I could wear whatever I wanted. And got moved in here in 1993. So you're talking 6 years before I got the internet. And that suddenly it's like, that's what I am, because that uncomfortable part of me that I didn't understand, this instinct, I just wanted to brush it under the carpet, but you could feel the lumps under the carpet. It was just an uncomfortable part of me I didn't get. I couldn't understand. And then when I got on the internet, I did understand, because that's the internet for you, isn't it? And so I ended up bumping into some people and so on. Well, so I gave a bit of this story when I told my parents, and and my mum afterwards, she kind of blamed herself, from she kind of blamed herself that I couldn't tell her, and I said, don't do that. I told her not to do that because I didn't understand it. I couldn't understand it myself. How could I explain it when I didn't understand it? It made no sense to me. And, but I don't think that was good enough for her. And then she had other things that she kind of threw at me. I think there's 2 reasons why she's struggled. And unfortunately, she doesn't talk about it. So you can't really get down to it, And so one of them, my brother, is bisexual. Lives with a guy. But when my mum told me about this, and one of the things she said during that conversation was, I've come to accept that I'll never have any grandchildren. And I just wonder whether, you know, my brother's with a guy, and you know, um, well, there's no chance of me getting grandchildren from that kid, and then so I've only got one son left, and suddenly they're saying they're trans, so I can't have grandchildren now, which is nonsense because I could always adopt if I wanted to, foster children even, you know. So it just maybe that's one factor. The other one is that she said to me, she's when she kind of had a lot, because I was walking on eggshells around her. I'd say something and it was like, it just opened the valve of stuff that had been on her mind or something, and she just blurted out stuff. And being Aspie, I didn't know what to do with that really. And so one of the other things she said is, I can't have girl children, I can't carry girl children, all my girl children died. Now, my brother is nearly 15 years younger than me. He was born in November, my birthday's in January. So I was 14, almost 15 when he was born. And my mum had had a couple of miscarriages. By that, maybe a couple of them were girls. I don't know how many she had, But, if she, and this is back in the 80s, the early 80s in fact, if she just had a nurse put her arm on her shoulder or something saying something like, don't worry dear, you could always try for another one, and another one miscarries, maybe she didn't get over the grief of that, that a platitude from a nurse, wasn't enough for her to grieve properly, and suddenly here I am getting in the way of this, I'm getting in the way of this truism she wants to be the case, she wants this to be true. I can't have any girls, and that didn't happen for me, that wasn't meant to be, because my mum is a bit of a meant to be kind of person. And so with her thinking that, I'm getting in the way of that truism for her. I don't know. She won't talk to me. She won't talk to my dad, as far as I'm aware. So what happened was, so it was the day before Mother's Day, and I phoned my mum and I said, hiya, so I've got a Mother's Day present. I'd like to come down and bring it down to you, and also a birthday present that from the month before that she didn't want me to go down for. And she made excuses, she said, I'm working and I don't know what time I finished. Well, she works in it's a supermarket. She's one of the people, you get your food delivered to home, like I do actually. And she's the kind of person that goes around the store picking it, putting it into baskets, and then that then goes into a van and then they deliver it to you a few hours later. Well, the place is shut by 4. They all shut at 4. So she'd be home by 5. So it was an excuse. And then, and then she sort of came out with some other bits, with, that she had a tumour in her thumb and she's had it removed now. But she was going to be going into surgery that week to get it done. And she's, so I got to go to the hospital for my thumb thing, on Wednesday, and I'm scared to death. And I've had a row with someone at work, and I've had a row with a guy around the corner because the dog took a dump on their driveway. She picks it up, but the dog. She takes the dog for a walk. It takes a dump, and she scoops it up as you should. And it was just like, okay. So so I said to so I said to her, I said, well, how about if I come down as a guy and I'll just leave it on the doormat outside? And she's like, well, you don't have to do that. And of course in my head, because I take people at face value, she knows this, you don't have to. Well, I don't have to, but I want to because you're my mum and I've got a present for you, kind of thing is what I'm thinking. And, you know, sort of in exasperation, I just, well, how about if I come down and just, you know, how about if I mail it to you? And she's like, well, that's not fair on you, and I don't want to be unfair. And I kind of slowly said, well, yeah, you are being, cause, you know, and I was going to follow it up with, because all I want to do is come down as a guy, leave it on the doormat and go. You know, if you don't want to talk to me, I'll leave it on the doormat and go. You know, if you don't want to talk about the trans stuff, that's fine too. We'll not talk about that. We'll talk about other stuff. That would, you know, be that would be the idea. Been talking for about half an hour, I'd say. Well, before I could say any of that kind of stuff, she went, you know what, don't bother coming down, just consider me dead, and put the phone down. Well, I was angry at that. I was fuming. And I got on my bike and I went down there as a guy, and it was the last time I wore any guy clothes. And I went down and I stopped a couple of times to think, should I do this or should I do not? And I, you know, I decided I had to, because she was going to be going this surgery thing, and I just didn't want the last, you know, it's something I had to tell her. You know, she said she was going in for surgery. I didn't know if she was going to be getting a local or a general anaesthetic. If she died on the table, the last thing she'd have told me, you know, was just consider me dead. You know, and I wasn't having that, you know. So I went down and I decided on the way that, you know, being tall, I didn't want to come across as angry and aggressive and pointing and stuff like that, you know. I decided I was going to be like a stern school teacher, you know, being forthright and honest and everything, and try and keep my voice low and not angry. And, you know, and so I went in and I shooed the dog off the chair and sat down, so I couldn't even be tall. And I said to her, I said, look, you don't get to tell me that I should consider you dead. If you want to consider me dead, that's up to you. You make decisions for how you feel or what you think. But don't tell me how I should think of you. And I said, you know, you said you're going in for hospital, into the hospital this week. You know, if you'd have died on the table, the last thing you would have told me is that I should consider you dead. And, you know, and other little bits and bobs were said, but, you know, I ended up having to tell her, you know, look, just because I didn't turn out the way you expected doesn't mean to say that you've failed as a parent. But if you refuse to accept me for who I am, then you'll have failed as a parent. And she kind of backed up and, you know, she went, well, fail as a parent then. That defiance to me pushing on her is exactly the reason why I was there. You know, you don't get to tell me that I consider you dead. You know, that anger at her pushing that on me, I pushed back. I learned it from her. I learned it from the best. So, you know, anyway, she started to say something and I said, stop. Be careful what you say now, because once you've said it, you can't unsay it. You can't take it back. I said, well, I'm not going to take it back. I want nothing more to do with you. And I stood up and I took a step for the door and I stopped. And when I stood up, my dad must have stood up as well. If he wasn't already in the room, I would have got him from the living room, because normally he sits in the living room, watches his sports and other things, and my mum sits in the dining room, watches her TV shows. And so I said to her, I went to him and I put my hands on his shoulder and said, look, I know I'm only related to you through my mum, but just because she wants nothing more to do with me doesn't mean to say it's over between us, okay? And he's like, okay. And I was feeling, you know, I was starting to choke up. I was really upset. And I took a step, I headed off for the door and I gave a sob a couple of steps in. And my mum said, you know, I'm sorry you're upset, but that's just the way it is. And I turned to her and I said, no, You don't get to tell me you're upset. Sorry, you don't get to tell me you're sorry at the same time as you're pushing me out of your life. It's not on. It's not fair, and it's not right. And I'm not having it. And I went out the door, and I shouted back, and I said, "I'm not going back to living the way I was. I've been doing so well, and you're not going to take it away from me." And I rode home. I came back a long way because I was upset. Because I don't want to be like riding on the road and my mind buzzing with, upset thoughts. And so, so I came home, and once the door was locked, I'm walking down the hallway, and I took my guy clothes off for the last time, and I threw them on the ground in the hallway. And as I threw it down, I said, "Well, I'm not going to need them anymore." And over the next 3 weeks, I went through my bedroom, and any guy clothes got lobbed out in the hallway. So my wardrobes were basically emptied, and they were filled full of dresses and stuff that I'd been buying stuff for years before, 10 years before, and more, including stuff I made. And so, after 3 weeks with a pile of clothes like this high, I split them up into 2 piles. Anything that had any stains or tears or anything like that, they were for the bin, and anything that had anything that was good and wearable, that was to go to charity. I kept a small selection of the bad stuff that would go to the bin, and I basically went and had like a weird setting fire to it thing, sort of. A bit of the phoenix rising from the ashes, those were the ashes and the new me emerging from that kind of thing. It was a weird thing to do, but I think it was cathartic. And then I kept one set of guy clothes for a year, and and the idea was that if my mum got her head around it, and I'd be prepared to risk my transition, because gender identity clinics, they don't like you playing boy or girl. They want you to go girl and that's it, or boy if you're trans man, of course. They want you to be committed. You got to live as your new gender before they'll start doing hormones and all that kind of stuff. So, well, if they'd learned that I was prepared to go down as a guy to, just to visit my parents, they might say, "Well, you've not been committed enough, therefore you'll just have to wait," and then ends up being a third assessment. So, but I wasn't prepared to do that. So, so I basically kept one set for a year, and after a year, I got rid of them. I left it exactly a year, because it was the 31st of March, which was Mother's Day in 2019, and so on the 1st of April, I took that last set of guy clothes down, and down to the clothing bank and left them there. But it was, and as much as that really hard day was upsetting, it led to my best day. And my best day was, like I say, 3 weeks later. It was a Tuesday, and I had to go into town. I can't remember what I was doing now, but I was going into the town where I live, into the centre of town, shopping area, and I was feeling really good about myself. So I dropped off the first bag of guy clothes, and I was wearing a really fitted shift dress. Let me see if I can find a picture of it, because pictures tell 1,000 words, as they say. Let's move this to the centre for a moment. And okay, so that's what I was wearing. A really fitted shift dress. Square neckline. I was wearing some 2-inch heels. I don't need heels, but I was wearing them because they make you walk a little bit different. You know, it's you got to do one foot in front of the other, and they weren't stilettos. They were like chunky D-shaped heel. And of course, the problem that you got to worry about with heels is that I think they were at 1.5 inches actually, but the problem with heels is I'm 6'4", and as you can see from the door behind me, doors are 6'5". 6'6", so 6.5 feet tall. So that probably is 2 inches. So yeah, so you know, wearing heels, I've got to be careful with doors because I'll bump my head at the top of my step if I'm not careful. So yeah, it's dangerous. But you know, I was looking good and I was feeling good. And so what happened was, give me a second. Sorry about that. So so what happened was I dropped off the first bag, and then I was in the centre of town, and there's an indoor market. So there's a makeup place, and on the other side there was a haberdashery place because I needed something. I can't remember what I bought in the end, but I needed something there. And I was walking through the indoor market, looking good, feeling good, you know. My clothes were right, my makeup was right, my hair was great, you know, feeling on top of the world because, you know, I'm moving away, I'm moving forward, you know, I'm moving away from the guy past, moving forward to the girly future. And so, how do you get the link for this? I'll find it. Give me a sec. I'm just going to post the link to this so people can see it. Your channel. Apologies for this. Oops, got too much crap on my desk. There we go. Okay, turn the mute and stick that there. So, anyway, so like I say, walking through the indoor market, moving forward, moving away from that, moving towards the girly future, and in my head, I was thinking, I hope I'm tucked tight, because with a dress like that, there's no room in it. It's kind of closed and tight. And although physically it's not comfortable, mentally it is, because it really brings out my womanly side, you know. So, and I'm wearing some, what they're called Spanx, but they're basically like, you know, really, it's like a really strong spandex kind of stuff. And it's used for tucking your tummy in, you know, stopping you looking too fat. Well, it's really good for tucking away boy bumps, because I don't want to see anyone seeing boy bumps. And a dress like that, hard to hide it. So those undies are really, really useful. So I'm walking through the indoor market, looking good, feeling good, and in my head I'm thinking, I hope I'm tucked tight and no one can tell. I'm sure I am, but you know what? Even if they can tell, I don't care. I'm being me, I'm being true to myself, and no one can tell me I can't look like this or feel like this or be like this. And after I was done, I decided, you know what, I'm going to reward myself for feeling this good. And so I went and bought myself some fresh flowers. And I do that for myself every month now. In fact, sorry, it's not even every month, it's every fortnight now. Used to do it every month, and then I increased it to every fortnight. So, for example, I mean, these ones are looking a bit dead now because I get a new delivery next week. But there you go, see? You can see they're looking a little limp in the middle there. But these ones are still looking quite nice. And so, and they sit behind my monitor. And this is my reward. That's my reward for my transition. That's me rewarding myself for being me and being true to myself. So, that's the main thing that I'm trying to do for it. So, and then 2 weeks later, 2 days later, because it was a bit of a rainy week. So 2 days later, it was another sort of nice enough afternoon, not raining. So I went and did, in the evening, I went and got rid of another 5 big bin bags full of guy clothes. And I left them off. And, it was... and I took a little selfie that day, and I took that photo that day, and one of my friends on Twitter, she said I looked radiant, which is a wonderful compliment. So, like I say, it was it was a very special time. And this is what I try to do. I try to take bad things and turn them into good things. So, because if I absorb, I've mentioned this before, but if I absorb the negative shit, then I'm going to it'll dominate me. I'll drown myself in my own misery. And I'm not prepared to do that. I'm just, I don't want to let other people dominate my happiness. And so, I created this great coping strategy, that, so what I've got is a points-based system. So, and it's not like a literal system, I'm not literally counting points like calories or anything. It's conceptual. So, if you can imagine, I'm walking down the street. Someone's walking the other way. She looks at me. I smile. She smiles back. There's a point. I go to Boots where they do the makeup and stuff like that. Well, so I go in like, oh, your eye makeup's looking nice today, which I don't know. I'm pretty good at doing makeup because I'm wearing sort of pink and purple. I went with pink and purple on my nails and around my eyes. So, wearing glasses, bit of a pain really. But, so yeah, I go to Boots like, oh, your makeup's looking nice today. Well, they're experts. So that's like a couple 100 points. Then I got someone like Jackie. If you don't know Jackie, she's like a puppy. You want to squeeze her and hug her because she's just one of those most wonderful people. I post a picture. Oh, Laura, you look stunning today. Well, that's like 500 points of gush right there. One of my biggest my biggest type was my bank. One of the cashier ladies there, I'd noticed she'd started calling me Laura. She never used to use my guy name, so she's trying to make me feel comfortable, which I appreciate. So so I said to her, oh, thank you very much for that, I appreciate it. She went, oh, you're quite welcome, dear, you're looking nice today. I said, oh, I'm not too bad at clothes and makeup and stuff. And then she said, no, you look beautiful. You tell a man he's handsome, you tell a woman she's beautiful, to tell a trans woman she's beautiful, that means a lot. And I had that a few weeks ago. A few weeks back on a Saturday, I met with a trans woman in Manchester and her boyfriend, and we wandered around town and sort of, had something to eat, all those sorts of things. And after we split up, I went into Harvey Nichols and there was a counter there, and I sort of asked like how to do stuff below the eye, and she showed me a couple of things. Now she's put it on. She's like, "Oh, beautiful! You look beautiful." It's like, wow, those are huge things to tell someone like me. It mean a huge amount. So if you can imagine, I got 8,000 points of positive energy, and I get someone shitty. Because I've got negative shit. I've actually done this the wrong way around, because normally I have a way of saying this. So I normally explain the negative stuff and then do the positive stuff. I'll tell you the negative stuff. So, I'll get the stuff that people don't even realise they do. Where someone's walking towards you, they look at you, and their eyes go, "Wait a minute, something didn't look right," and then they take a better look. And that's when they get the knowing nod or the goofy grin. That's why she's so tall, kind of thing. It's a bit unnerving, but it's subconscious. People don't even realise they're doing it. Then you get a bit like the gawkers and people jeering. You get sort of two lads nudge, look, kind of thing. That was the gawpers, and then you get the people jeering. I've had group of people go by, and then did you see them? And then you hear laughter. Did you see that? And then one of the worst ones I've had, like the jeering out of the car, was walking through town and a Chav family go by, and it's, there's another she-he loudly as I go by. And I just sort of turn around and do, like with the really face, as in, what, you couldn't wait until you're out of earshot before outwardly, pointing me out, physically pointing me out. And I turn around with a sort of really face, like, what the, and that's when the little kid who was about 5 goes, "You're a man." Where did he learn it from? So there's another generation of transphobes there, probably. Maybe, hopefully, they'll learn better, but so that kind of stuff. It's kind of upsetting, but the thing about it is, like I say, if I focus on those negative people, I'll drown myself. And I have so many more nice people out there. And so I can't let those people dominate my life. As I said, I did that for 19 years. So I don't do that anymore. So, like I say, I just like... what a bunch of arseholes. No matter. Told me everything you need to know about them, said nothing about me. Because it doesn't. It doesn't say anything about me. It doesn't say anything bad about me at all. It only tells me something about them. So, it's a bit disappointing, really, but, it's one of those things. And so, I'm just going to continue living my life, and as things are going really well for me. Like I say, I've had some voice coaching, still got to work on it, but I think one of the really nice things that's happening for me is that I'm letting go of some of the guy things that I used to have going on. So watching a movie, and I don't have to do that, and it's subtle as well. It's something that's, it's kind of insidious, it's something that's like embedded in there, and it was creeped into you. It wasn't a shoved on you in one big, foul swoop. It's something that's sort of inbuilt in the depths of the societies that we have, that big boys don't cry kind of thing. You're supposed to be strong, manly, and that. Well, why? Why do you have to be like that? That's kind of the point. So, you know, I can feel myself watching a movie and feeling, you know, feeling the emotions from it. And before, I wouldn't allow myself to do that. That would be like, oh, that's, you know, that wasn't appropriate kind of thing. Well, now I can be whoever I want to be. And, you know, I mean, I went out today on my bike wearing this lovely, you know, sort of like a purpley pink dress that I got in the post today. You know, it's got an you know, got a belt to go with it. Not matching one. That's just one I put with it. And you know, and not only that, it glows in the dark. The belt does. But you know, I went on my bike to Halfords and bought the car spray paint. You know, and I looked great. You know, I mean, yeah, sure, my hair's a little bit there, but you know, I looked great, and I'm being myself. And you know, yeah. Oh, porpoise. That would be great. Unfortunately, my torso, the belt loops for this dress, the torso doesn't hold it down the right place. It looks better when I'm not slouching about a bit like I was before. But when I stand up, I look fine. It's only when I sit down it wants to go up, because unfortunately I'm a little bit on the round side. And so what happens is sort of between my chest there, and it gets thinner and then it gets wider again. So you know, it wants to ride up to go to the thinnest part of me. So, but you know, like I say, it still looks cute, and I've got another one of these coming in a couple of days. It's a mustard coloured one. So yeah, and this I'm wearing this with a lemon, very pale yellow cardigan, which you know you'd think doesn't work, but it actually does work quite nicely. So so yeah, that's the, you know, like I say, the thing that I'm loving right now is how soft my skin is getting. You know, like I say, it's just, you know, you know, 'cause I can feel it in my hands. My hands feel so much softer. You know, it's almost like I've been using moisturiser for weeks, and it's now, you know, no, these aren't new glasses. These are I've had these for a while now, but I do like them. They're my kind of day-to-day stuff. You know, just they're big, so I don't have to sort of look through little pieces, or you know, and they're comfortable enough to wear. You know, they're not too tight or anything, and they can bend outwards and up and down as well, so they're quite forgiving. And they're just what I use for just like day-to-day stuff. You know, watching the computer. You know, looking at the computer stuff, and you know. So yeah, I mean, I've got several pairs of glasses. I've even got some giraffe glasses around here somewhere. Is there any here? No, there aren't any there. But yeah, like I say, it's do you think it's all a bit weird? Do you think it's a bit weird that you think you look great? No offence, but I personally think you dress odd, and I would stand out like a sore thumb in public. My idea of transition is inconspicuous. Okay, well, yeah, fair enough. You know, the thing about it is, I figured out, you know, at first I was like, am I trying too hard? Am I being too girly? But the thing is, you know, if you think about it of a spectrum, you got everything from tomboy to really girly. Is there any reason why I can't be up here somewhere? Yeah, sure, I stand out, but I don't care about that because I'm being me. You know, you get some girls that like, you know, the sort of, this is a Lindy Bop dress, you know. There are some girls that like, you know, sort of retro 50s stroke retro 80s stuff. You know, it's me being me. I'm showing my, I don't know, This is who I want to be. And, you know, if a cis girl, with a cis woman did this, would anyone say, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that? I doubt it. You know. And I've had, I've had women say, gosh, you've got a lovely style. So, you know, like I say, this makes me comfortable. It does. This makes me comfortable. It's me being me. And when I see myself in the mirror, it's like, yes, that's you. You know, the mirror's telling me who I am, how I think of myself, how I feel about myself. And that's what's important. And everyone else can fuck off. You know, and I don't mean you in particular. I just mean that, you know, you live your life for you, not for me. And I spent too long living my life for everybody else. So, you know, I'm doing what's right for me, even if that means that I'm the best dressed girl in town. So, you know. Well, this isn't being little girl. You know, this is, like I say, it's almost like what it used to wear in the 50s kind of thing. I mean, the only thing I'm not doing is wearing a petticoat. But, you know, it's smart and looks good on me. You know, it works for me. So, you know, and I mean, one of the things I wasn't going to do, I wasn't going to do that kind of middle ground, androgynous look as I went through my transition. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be myself. That's it. That's how I am. So, like I say, you know, I'm going for a style that works for me. So, like I say, things are working well. My medical transition has started, and now it's starting to show the dividends. My skin is softer. I'm starting to feel a bit different as well on sort of the emotional level. But it's, you know, like I say, I'm starting to be able to see myself on a screen, and I'm starting to see myself on the screen and say, yeah, that's me. And one of the rite of passages that I've seen on Twitter is when you see sort of one of the trans girls, trans women, who tweet a picture of themselves without makeup, and it's like, I think I'm starting to see who I am, you know, now. Like, you know, they're not afraid to show a picture of themselves without makeup, you know, without making this supreme effort to try to look right. They already look right without it. And one day I will get to that point. I mean, you know, without makeup, I still kind of keep looking for, trying to find the guy heritage behind it, you know. But it's going to vanish. It's going to disappear. So, yeah, fair enough, Demi. Like I say, I'm just seeing where it goes. I'm not trying to force it anywhere. I'm just, you know, following my heart, seeing where it goes, and, you know, the river of life will take me where it goes. You know, I'll just follow it, you know, flow with it, and see how it goes. I mean, yeah, right, I may not look, you know, super beautiful or anything like that in the future, but I'm certainly starting to see it already. You know, so like I say, the only thing that's the problem right now is the hair, mainly. Other than that, the rest I'm fine with. You know, I can only work with what I've got. So, like I say, it's you know, yeah. So there you go. That's it. I think I've pretty finished now. I really shouldn't. You know, I'm just a little bored. You know, I'm just likely to just go and keep saying the same thing. So, like I say, I'll post an update in another 3 months or so, something like that. You know, a transition update, see how things are going, because of course I'll start to have other elements coming along. So we'll see what happens there. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a nice weekend, and yeah, I will catch you all soon. Good night.